Marco,
Sean,
guess what time it is?
it's story time.
Yeah,
One of my favorite time.
it's
Well,
uh, it's not it's not a normal story time. We're
oh
no, no, we're
really?
not. It's not normalized. This one.
It's not it's not normalized. You know, I spend way too much time with you, and I made too many interview and podcasts with you because I knew you were gonna go there. So, well, I was gonna say, yeah, it's not normal. I don't know. You've been around for a while in this industry. Our guest's been in this industry for a long time. And I'm here, I'm the younger guy, not actually his age, but younger in the industry. So I want to learn from you guys, but it's not normal, is it?
It's not normal. It's not normal, and the people are going to understand what the heck we're talking about as we dig into this. But I'm thrilled to have Monzy on from Crogl. How are you, Monzy?
I'm really well. Good to see you guys again.
Good to
Good to
see
be
you
here.
again. Yes, we had a quick chat not too long ago. We got a quick overview of what Crogl's up to, and we wanted to dig in and kind of talk about some stuff. You have some news that you're going to share. We're going to have another conversation with the team on that as well, and what it all means for organizations trying to secure their business and have an effective and efficient SOC to do that. And so we're going to get into that. But first, a few words about your past leading you up to the founding of Crogl, and then what the catalyst was for starting the company.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me and everybody who's watching this. Thanks for listening in. So I'm a lab rat by training, and what I mean by that is I worked in the nuclear weapons complex for about a dozen years as an applied security researcher, working on hardware, software problems all related to cybersecurity and building things for the weapons complex for that mission work. And then I went and worked for Splunk for about a decade. And then after that, started uh, the cybersecurity go-to-market function for Databricks. And throughout this time period, there was a thing that kind of kept getting stuck in my head that there's lots of data, there's lots of tools. Conventional wisdom is, put all your data in one place and analyze it, and that's the way to do it. And I realized that that was not factually tenable or operationally tenable because organizations have data in lots and lots of places. I mean, I've literally shaken hands with probably 1,000 or so CISOs and thousands of security practitioners in the community over the years. Security is all I've ever done, and and that was the reason to start Krogel. But before starting that, I thought to myself, well, I should go back and really get my hands dirty. So I joined one of the largest banks in the world to work on the security team. And the executives there sort of joked with me and they were like, hey, you're an executive at Databricks. Why don't you come be an executive here? How big of a team do you want? And I was like, no, I don't want a team. I have this idea. I want to create a startup. I want a keyboard and I want to work on the problems. I want to work on tickets. They were like, you are crazy. And that's a grungy job. I said, I know. And it's I will really want to understand how it works because I don't want to be the guy who starts a company who's actually, I mean, you don't eat food from a chef who's never eaten food. It's like it doesn't work that way. Why is it okay to
Yep.
build a company like that? And so I did that. And that's so we had this crazy idea and we sat around the fireplace and we said, what if you created a product which would make every security analyst as effective as the entire team? Now, think about that. That's a crazy proposition. And we're not naive. We've been in the security industry for a long time as a practitioner, researcher, done all the things, right? So we knew it was a ridiculous proposition. But that was the ridiculous proposition. And then we said, well, what would it take for that proposition to come true? Like, what could we do to even scratch the surface on that one and get deeper? So that was our North Star, and that was a starting point for Krogel. Krogel's now been around for 2.5 years, and we have customers in large government agencies. We're really just and other commercial enterprises. We're really trying to focus on organizations that have really really hard problems.
Yeah, I really love the story, and I know you're going to actually show us something like a little demo in a little bit. But there's a few things you said. I mean, we started joking with normalization, but then you said a couple of, I mean, one magic sentence, which is what if? And I think like that's the key for any innovation, any hacking mentality, not the bad guys, the hacking meaning the scientists, the inventors, they're like,
Yeah.
what if I do it different? I love that. And normalization is exactly when you say, well, I've always done it this way. Why should I change? So it's really like how you break stuff and you innovate. So love that. Love that.
Yeah, and I think the challenge, we've touched on this before, Monzy, both on recording and else time other times. But I mean, the problem we were solving 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago now was hard to solve. Right, the technology is available to solve it. Hadn't quite come around yet to scale with the businesses, and the number of systems connecting and the amount of data coming in was difficult to deal with. It's only expanded exponentially since. And I think we ended up with a set of or a method for which we manage our data in the SOC, to your point. And we found a, I guess, a common ground where it kind of did okay, but it wasn't going to scale to the future very well, which is what you've seen. So maybe now's a good time to kind of touch on what that really looks like and the challenge there, and how you guys are really shifting the method and the model for how we address this. So I'll pull up your slides here and you can kind of walk us through some things, and then we'll get into the demo.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Let me see. We're seeing that. Yeah, I'm not gonna do death by PowerPoint, but I do want to I do want to call out a couple of things just to set the stage, right? Is like what was happening. So before we founded Crogl, I mean, we're in 2023 at that time, and security teams are missing breaches. And you look at like why do they miss breaches? And there's lots of reasons, and people like play a lot of blame game, like this person's lazy or that person's not competent, or like okay, throw away all of that and really look at the physics of what's happening. And the first part of the physics of what's happening is that as technology footprints have evolved, sensors have been developed to create to check the security posture, or to create alarms, or to create compliance modalities for the organization. So every time there's a new thing, it creates more alerts, and the security team is somehow magically expected to understand all those alerts and to understand all of the behavioral patterns of the user, understand what's normal and what's not normal from an investigative point of view. So that's a very important thing to call out. And so that's why I say that analysts have domain knowledge gap. This is not a slight against analysts. This is like a weird thing, and maybe I'm just hungry, so I keep going back to kitchen analogies, but it's you don't expect a baker to be a bartender, or a bartender to be a dentist. But in cybersecurity, we expect our SOC analysts or security operators to understand what email headers look like, what PCI means, how to remember all of where the data is in the enterprise, and be competent in writing exceptionally clean and performant queries in a particular data lake. It's a ridiculous proposition.
On and on and on. I mean, you just picked a few.
Yeah, just keep
It's
going.
endless.
Right? It's a ridiculous proposition. And then what we do is we say, oh, people say we have a security team, but it's like a security team, like like an Olympic team is a team. An Olympic team is really not a team, because everybody runs their own events. And that's how most security teams operate, where Bob gets an alert and Bob works on that alert. And what Bob learns, unless there's some meeting or some crazy retrospective or a whole bunch of document writing and retraining, Sally doesn't get to benefit from Bob's experience. In contrast, you take some other sports, which are truly team sports, where each player benefits from the other player's activity. Security teams don't behave that way. Product development teams behave that way, but security teams don't behave that way. So when we tore down the problem, that is sort of the core problem in my mind on what is still happening in many organizations, but what was really happening. That's the kind of the base principle. And now this other stuff makes sense. And by this other stuff, I mean, why did the prior stuff didn't work? So we tried SIMs. I was there. Thank you for everybody who is, a customer of Splunk that has bought the Splunk SIM. And we tried to solve that problem. And try to create the single pane of glass. It has its benefits, but it has detriments. And one of those big detriments is everything has to be normalized. We tried it with SOAR, and again, I was in that industry for a long time as well. And SOAR was useful, but those playbooks are so brittle and they're so hard to maintain that every time something changes slightly, everything breaks. Like most organizations that I talk to maybe have 4 or 5 SOAR playbooks that are deployed in production. That's about the extent of it. And then we started seeing this emergence of zero shot. Like if we look at like November 2022 time period, when ChatGPT really came out as, where out of the public beta or the private beta into a public beta, where people started seeing the opportunity, what could be done with a frontier model. People started to build these these zero shot AI SOC things. And even that didn't work. So that's kind of the work that we're in. So we look at security leaders, there's tool competency issues, there's data sprawl, there's use case explosion. But when we talk to the security teams, especially the more sophisticated ones, because we wanted to do this, one person being as effective as the entire team mantra. So we talked to teams that were doing really, really well. And what we realized was they still had the problems. They had a lot of capability, but they were really focused on trust and safety of the future of this operation using AI, of their security operations. They wanted to use the best tool for the job, and they wanted to live in a world because they realized that data was everywhere and things were growing really, really fast. And so when we built Crogl, we built it on these 3 core principles that are rooted in data, process, and governance. And those things are, first, we want to live in a world where you have to investigate every alert. There's no ands, if, and buts around that, because you can say, oh, that's a false positive, or that should be tuned out. We can say that, but you can also see the logical conclusion of that at some point, if you don't pay attention to the alert, even when you're sensitized to it, or you just don't have the time for it, you're going to miss the breach.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the thing that costs the needle in the
Are
haystack.
you say you're normalizing missing the alert?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it becomes part of something bigger, right? All of a sudden, that one thing that's become irrelevant is part of a chain that is relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue. I've talked to so many folks, and myself as being a practitioner, they were like, well, we'll filter alerts. We need more alert filtering. It's like, yes, we do, but we're not doing that because we're going to get a better security posture. We're doing that because we're tired of crushing our teams, because they just don't have the time and try to make them look bad. I've literally seen people close tens of alerts with one checkbox without investigating any one of them. It's not because they're lazy. They don't have the time. They have to go do something else. So they don't have the time to just go through every single one where there's such a low probability of finding anything meaningful in there. But the other big one is this schema thing. And this was crazy. Like when we shared with people that we're going to build a product that will work regardless of what schema you have under the hood, people are like, that's just stupid. Come on. As 40 years, every single person in the world says that you have to normalize your data, whether you use an ETL approach or an ELT approach or whatever approach that you're using, you have to normalize your data across all these things. And our statement wasn't like, oh, we hate those people who build the data warehouse platforms. Is that when we look at it observationally of what's really happening in an organization and operationally what's happening, data is not normalized. And people have spent millions of dollars on these treadmills of trying to normalize data, but it's not having the outcome. Something always changes. The data store changes, the data format changes, a new data format shows up. People have multiple data lakes that they utilize. They're sitting on cloud, on-prem, hybrid, all over the place. And so to expect it's just not true. It's like, you're gonna breathe without oxygen. It's just like a weird thing to say. It's like nobody would buy that. It's sort of an extreme example, but it has to be true. And then on these auditable actions on the governance side of this, we really wanted to build a system that people could trust. And the only way you do that is by showing the work that was done and that people can learn from it. And the only way to do that is by showing the work that was done. So it seems like a simple argument, but it's unbelievable, like how many systems are built by popular cybersecurity, vendors who do good work, but their tools or the techniques are not visible to the security operator. And then we layered this other thing. We said, AI is very important. We're going to embrace it, but it has to be private. It has to be customer managed. You can't just be leaking stuff to it. So those are kind of our main objectives, and tactically. So the data process and governance piece kind of encapsulated in more tactical, very, very specific aspects, and to package it up into a private system. So that's kind of the thing. That's sort of the thing that we built. I mean, I can show you a quick customer example slide, and then we can can go to a demo, or maybe you guys have some reactions to this.
Well, yeah, let me say this first, because, and maybe you can touch on this to kind of maybe set the stage for the customer and the demo. But I mean, what do teams, we're kind of speaking to, well, I'll say this. When vendors sell security to CISOs, it's often about setting them up for success, the CISO, right? Which means hopefully their program is successful, and then they can demonstrate to the executive leadership team and the board perhaps that they're successful. And you bring that down to the analyst, and that the analyst being successful gets lost, right? I think it's either assumed, or we'll figure that out. That doesn't really matter. It's how the CISO and all the programs look, so they can talk about it. And I mean, to your point earlier, just the ability for them to keep up on all the different domains and all the different data sets coming in, and even if it's all normalized, they might be missing context. And to your point of they close 10 at a time or tens at a time. What did the teams feel, the analysts feel, when they're dealing with this challenge? So do they feel like they're doing the right thing? Do they feel like they're missing things? Do they feel that they can't keep up with the changes? Do they feel there's information there that they can't get because it's not part of the schema, not part of the normalized data set? What do you hear from them?
Yeah, I think there's multiple layers, right? So at a very, very high level, if I had like one term, most security operators that I talk to, they joined the security industry and joined the world of being an operator because they wanted to find bad guys. And they wanted to protect or defend whatever organization it is that they joined. And the reality of it, what they're really doing is they're working on alerts that usually don't yield anything. They're working on misconfiguration related alerts, where when they pull on the thread to find out, well, Bob just forgot to change his password when he was supposed to, and so he's still trying his old password, and that's why the alarm's going off that somebody's brute force attempting him, and it's really actually Bob. It's not some bad person doing it. And so it kind of went from this, what in their mind was supposed to be like a really noble profession, and that they were going to do and make a huge contribution to something that is really just, it's of little consequence. They get measured on weird things in terms of how fast they respond, or how many tickets they work on, and their ability to, and they have this ridiculous expectation from the organization that they're supposed to know everything. And they're supposed to, like all the things that I listed before, like whether it's email or application services or tools or whatever, they're supposed to know everything. And they have this strange job where when they do good things over and over and over again, they're just doing their job. And when they miss one thing, then it is catastrophic. The CISO gets fired, the leadership gets fired, people get shuffled around, everybody gets blamed for a bunch of stuff, and that's what happens, right? So that's the reality. That's the reality. It's like I don't know. I've talked to some folks. They're like, well, it feels like we're like firefighters who just keep answering the 911 call, but we never actually get to go firefight.
Mm.
And most of those 911 calls are crank calls. So that's all it is. We actually never get to do the thing that we always wanted to do. So that's, I think, at a meta level. On the physics level of like what is actually happening on a day-to-day basis, alerts get dished out. People have to work on them. Individual security analysts have to work on those alerts. They write their documentation. Somebody sometimes sees something, sometimes doesn't see something. There is no direct line for them to be able to communicate. Like, hey, these are all the things that we're seeing. Maybe somebody ought to do something about that. And they just keep seeing the repetitive. So they don't have a general mechanism of the voice going through. And then we go one layer deeper at the tactics of it. This is what I saw at the bank. This is what I see in many organizations. When an alert comes in, usually one of the first messages that goes out to the rest of the team is, who knows how to write this, to look for this thing in this tool? Like, who knows how to write the query to look at how many emails did Bob get last week? And the first response usually is, Sally's really good at that, but she's not here today. But here's the thing that she sent me when I asked her this last time. Maybe this will work for you. And so that's the kind of thing. So it's not, it doesn't always feel like you're doing awesome things. So security practitioners often have to find like these other kind of side things that they take on with their jobs. And this is what, where they're going investigating things or reading blog posts or trying to stay aware or trying to tinker with tools, which is when the leadership says, well, why are they doing that? Why are they not working on alerts? Because working on alerts is boring and it's not rewarding.
Yeah.
But they have ideas to do things, but they don't have a way to express those intuitions.
Right.
I'm telling you, I've learned two things. You don't want to be Bob, and maybe you want to be Sally, but
Yeah.
Not
but
there.
let's talk about how, and maybe this is where you kick in the customer slide, like how the solution is going to help Bob, because I feel really really bad for Bob right now.
Yes, we should. We all need to build some empathy for Bob, because this is Bob's world. The first sort of brown, that bluish grayish box. Bob is living in a world where there is, and this is one of Krogl's government customers, where there's 70 plus terabytes of data coming in day after day, just constantly. And I think most people don't really rationalize what 70 terabytes of data is. So I'll give you a visual. This phone of mine has about a half a gig of memory, or excuse me, 512 gigs of memory. So it's half a terabyte. And so 70 terabytes a day is, I'm going to throw this phone at you every like 20 minutes. And I'm going to throw it at you, and I'm going to throw it. So three times an hour, I'm going to throw at you a phone's worth of data. And who knows what the heck's in here. So I'm going to just keep doing that. And every day, and when you go home, I'm still throwing. You're not sitting in that chair, but I'm still throwing this phone at you. Right? That's what's happening. That's 70 terabytes of data a day. To just kind of wrap your head around like a physical example of that. That's crazy. Like, how do you even analyze or work through that problem? And then you have all these tools like this Bob in this case has a SOAR and EDR, and this two SIMs thing is at the core of the problem that I was starting to observe. Like, who has two SIMs? You'll be surprised that many people do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nobody will, but no CISO will ever stand up in public and say, guys, great news, we have two SIMs.
Great news.
But that's reality. And behind those two SIMs, in this case, two, in other cases, sometimes we've seen organizations with even more, there are multiple data lakes that connect up and multiple detection things and all of that, right? So it's,
I was going to say there's probably some extra stack underneath all that too.
Oh, there's
just
a
to
lot.
Get that to work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like at the thing, like, at the very top that you just kind of see a thing. So that's what's happening. So this is a very complex organization, but we're starting to see even smaller organizations that are getting to this point because they have so many different tools. So why are they using Crogl? They're using Crogl because, one, they want to investigate every alert that comes through. The analyst, Bob, should not be investigating every alert. Bob is an intelligent human being, is dedicated, and Sally is an intelligent human being. She's dedicated to doing a good job and wants to do good for the organization. They want Bob and Sally to focus on things that they should really be paying attention to, but not just saying, oh, this is important, trust us, in a way that there's evidence there. So I'll show you in the demo how the alert gets investigated and how a person like Bob or Sally, when they get the result from Crogl, they have some confidence in terms of what it's doing. And then as a consequence, you'll be able to see why things go so much faster. and why things go so much deeper, especially on the depth piece. Because you have supposed to know so many different tools in order to do a deep investigation. I'll show you how Crogl reduces the need to learn every single tool, because it will touch multiple tools. And then you'll see the consistency because of the response plan that's in place, that despite the fact that we're using AI capability, we still make things consistent, because in terms of an auditor, you have to demonstrate that that's what you're doing. And when Bob does something and Sally does something, it should be consistent. It should be, but consistent doesn't. So this is the other point that I'll say, and then we'll switch to the demo. Consistent doesn't mean incomplete
or rigid.
or rigid or the same constantly.
Yeah.
Consistent can evolve, and it should. And so we'll talk about that as we go through the demo. So with that, I will switch
let's do it.
my screen. So let's get to it. Let me log in, share this tab, and so this is the main dashboard. Imagine that you have deployed Crogl in your environment, and there's the minimal two requirements for Crogl to work is, one, there has to be some sort of case management system. For most people, that's like a ticketing system like Jira ServiceNow, or it's their SIM, because that's where alert goes and that's where they do alert management, or it's even their SOAR platform, because that's maybe where they're doing case management. So you have some system like that you have deployed. The other thing that you need, at least one data lake of some kind. That could be anything. It could be Splunk, Elastic, whatever it is that you use. Even S3 buckets, it doesn't matter. There has to be some data store, Databricks, whatever, some data store. So some case management system at least, and some data store. So, and then you deploy Crogl. So in this case, that is true. Crogl is deployed. You have a data store. You have and you have a SIM. Alerts are coming in, and Crogl is investigating those alerts. So I'm going to click on this malware detected on host alert. And at the very top, Crogl is just giving you a summary and saying it investigated this alert, and a threat has been found. Why is there a threat? We're just going to give you a quick summary, because we evaluated across 8 phases of the kill chain utilizing 13 different actions, and we found evidence, and there are some number of assets and identities that are impacted. So right there, in a very short blurb, you know that something was done deeper than just a singular alert for malware detection, and some analysis was done. So you can start to build some confidence in terms of, okay, the story is going somewhere. Farther below, you see a little bit of an overview. This is something you can copy paste into another system or into a Slack message or something, so that it's somewhat human readable. The other thing that we do is you say, okay, cool, I get it, you did all that, but what did you actually do? Because you're trying to build confidence in the system, right? As a human being. So this is the actual set of actions that was done. It's a malware detection alert. A responsible Bob or a responsible Sally will want to know what was the initial access for that alert. Where did that bad piece of malware come from? So Crogl follows the kill chain methodology to look across the different techniques that an attacker might use, and then figure out if there is a threat. And in order to do that, data is spread across multiple places. It's not always sitting in the same place. Crogl is going to the appropriate location to do that. So in this case, you can see that it created a Splunk query, and it's able to investigate that and get some results. Farther below, as the investigation continues, it's creating queries against Cribble, a Cribble search. And this one is interesting because it's not just Cribble search. It's a Cribble search query that's looking at data that's sitting in S3 bucket for CrowdStrike Falcon. So you're like 3 degrees of separation out, and Crogl is able to figure out that that's the data that's sitting in that S3 bucket, and is going to use it under this circumstance to analyze execution. And so likewise, there's other phases, and that's how Crogl figured out that there was threat here in this case. And that's why we say we looked at 8 phases and 13 actions. These are the 13 actions that have kind of built on top of each other.
I want to pause you here quickly, Monzy, because the alternative is this is one of 10 alerts that look similar, and the analyst says, I see this all the time. These are the 10 this hour, almost identical to the 10 last hour, and the 1 hour before that, and the 10 10 blocks from the day before, so I'm just going to close it. If they wanted to say, this seems suspicious, they would have to do all the stuff you just showed, the phases and the actions, manually, right?
Yes.
And that's why they don't. Not that they're lazy, but if they did that for all 10 and only one of them resulted in this, obviously it's a good thing they found the one, but they would have wasted all that time manually doing it for the other 9 over and over and over every hour. So I think, do you find that teams and the customers you're working with, do you find that they recognize this and they go, my goodness, I can't even describe the value that it provides?
Yeah, that is the reaction. I mean, you look at the query that's in front of you right now, and towards the middle of the screen. Forget about the fact that you can remember the schema. You still have to type the darn thing out.
Yep.
So you have two,
with no errors. Yeah.
yeah. When you have to write a Splunk query, you have 2 problems. Yeah, at least. Or in this case, a Cribble query, right? Or Cribble search. Who remembers all of this? And yes. So when we show this to security practitioners, they're like, yeah, this is what I want, because this will help. And then their immediate next question is, well, what if it makes a mistake? Or how do I know that this is correct? And so that's why, as we go through this, there are 2 things. So behind the scenes, to achieve that consistency bit that I called out before we jumped into the demo, Crogl creates a response plan, and that response plan actually includes what Crogl is going to do. So let me show you this query. Like in this particular case, you'll notice that this is the template of the query that we would use. Now, this template was not pre-packaged with Crogl. This template was learned from your environment. So those of us watching, that receive 2 squiggly brackets, it's not a particular field label for any specific specification, like OCSF or Common Information Model or the CEF format. It just so happens that in this particular case, in this organization, that's the field label that's used for recipient email addresses. Crogl figured that out. And so now it knows that if it's going to go look to investigate files, attachments, this is the query that it's going to run. And if somebody wants to change it, they can change this. If somebody wants to disable it because they say, Crogl, we don't trust you, this is the wrong query or whatever, they can disable it. So what it's going to do on a given circumstance is already visible to the team ahead of time, because it's going to follow a process. But we talked about consistency. Not being consistent does not equal static. So as Crogl continues its operation, as people do more work, Crogl will learn from that work, and Crogl will update the response plan. So this is not, so unlike a SOAR playbook where a human would have to change it, in this case, as data changes, as people's actions change, this is the Bob and Sally part. So when Sally works on this alert after Crogl has said something, Crogl will learn from Sally. Crogl will change the response plan. When Bob gets the alert, the result that Bob is going to see is sensitized from Sally's work. So it's incorporated. This goes back to the higher level mantra to make every analyst as effective as the entire team. And the only way you can do that is by shrinking that collaboration gap. If you try to put Sally and Bob in a room constantly to try to talk to each other, that's not a good way to learn, and that's not a good way to action things. There's too many meetings.
Yeah. Well, I love that. We're coming close on time here, so I'm gonna say that it's a great demo. I want to kind of recap with some of the final points here. So I'll put us back to conversation mode here, because I want to bring it back to the normalization part. There isn't a bunch of systems. There isn't a collection of other data sets that are now normalized and missing context and missing critical data. All of that kind of gone, right? And it just straight into Crogl from the data lake and access to the other systems, so it can do the different phases of activities. It seems to me I remember building collectors and connectors and normalization technologies, and new stuff would come and you change the schema and everybody get pissed off. And I mean, that in itself was a challenge, and complex. and leaves things open for risk and error. So I think kind of to bring it full circle, the new normal is no normalization, and eliminate all that junk and just give the data to the system and ultimately to the analysts so they can actually help train the system to do what it needs to, and then obviously they learn as well.
Yeah, give the access to the system, right? So Crogl is
Right.
is working on the data where the data lives. That's another important piece of it.
Yep.
It just goes and queries the system or interacts with that system, makes the API call with that system, whatever needs to be done, leaves the data where the data is. It's emulating an analyst essentially, right? That's what analysts do. We
Right.
don't print out pages and pages of logs, put them on our desk and start sifting through it. So why is it okay for another company to come tell you, oh, you want to do security analysis, you have to buy this thing, and now you have to migrate all of your data into this thing, normalize it, and then you can use it. They're like, no, the data's already there, just use it.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, what I like is, obviously I'm not a SOC analyst, but I used generative AI, and there is the learning curve and learning according to the way you work. What's my style? What is my environment? And when you buy something prepackaged, it's almost like, I don't know if you're still starving, but you can use another ingredient type of thing. Like, this is the recipe. Well, that's great, but this is not, ingredient is not in season. So how are you going to adapt, right, according to what your environment is? And not every environment is the same. So, I mean, it's like the difference between buying something that is packaged before and then you get upgrade and everybody gets the same upgrade versus you upgrade it as you go. And that's why I like it very, very much. Well, I think we could have another conversation. I'm very fascinated by this old way of thinking and the way the business change. The cybersecurity world is changing. So looking forward for many more of this.
Yep, and stay tuned. Not only is it cool and the outcomes are obvious, at least evident to me, I'm sure analysts and SOC managers are probably seeing it as well. Hopefully the CISOs recognize it, that their teams can benefit from this, not just the program. But you've also patented this stuff, so we're going to have a chat about that too. And so stay tuned. I'll be talking to Corey about the patent that helps make all this possible. Yep, good stuff.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate the time and really appreciate the questions. And we're looking forward to sharing this with more and more people.
Yep, I love it.
Love it.
Thanks, Monzy. And thanks everybody listening to this brand story here on ITSP Magazine. Be sure to connect with Monzy on LinkedIn and connect with the Crogl team. See how it can connect to your systems and data sets and give you the actions that your analysts need taken. And really appreciate it, Monzy.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.